All right. Hello, everyone. If you're here, you've either joined the bandwagon or you're my mum or my wife and you've made it back, or you're lost. You're trying to click on something much better and you're stuck on this one. My name is Anand, and you have found your way to the Not 30 Anymore podcast. It's the podcast about a tired and overweight 36-year-old dad who's trying to regain his youth. And to be honest, I am quite nervous today because I feel like, my wife was an awesome guest, but I feel like we've got a real guest today, my first real guest. And I think enough about me. I want to get straight in. I want to introduce Dr. Jo Winchester, So before this episode, Jo, and I'll just call you Jo.
Yeah.
Before this episode, I have done zero preparation. It's like, if you've watched the first two episodes, everyone, you probably noticed that it wasn't hard to tell. But I actually went onto LinkedIn. I had to update my LinkedIn. I don't want to get this wrong. I've got a real guest. No offense to my wife, who was an awesome guest last. So I saw a little bit of that, Here's Dr. Jo Winchester. She's a leader in tertiary education, and that's a big word for university, which is a place full of big words. So she's a leader in tertiary education, and she's an advocate for leadership. She's an advocate for leadership that creates social change. Right? Now, that's what I got off the thing. I couldn't, like, when I clicked on the link, it sort of went to your page and I couldn't find any more. So I just took what was in Google. From what I see on her Facebook.
Pretty cool that's in Google. I like that. People Google my name.
Type in Dr. Jo Winchester. There you go. Nice. You're a big deal.
I'll take that.
And she's out at the Australian Catholic University as well. And from what I've seen of her Facebook and what I've heard about in her sharing with me, she's an avid exercise enthusiast. She's a single mum, and she's someone with a really cool career. And like, she's doing big things in a big way. It's like every time I speak to Jo, guess what? This big thing happened, and this big thing's happening as a result. And it's pretty cool. She's really humble, but it's really impressive what she's up to. So welcome, Jo, to the podcast. Thank you for spending your evening with me.
Thank you, Anna. That's such a generous introduction. Thank you. I feel like that, it's really, everything you said is true, but it's also, your experience of yourself is always like not that sometimes. And I guess that's kind of what the conversation is about. But I was super excited that you invited me on because, all those great things I've done, like you and Nimi have been part of that journey. And I would 100% acknowledge your amazing contribution to me. So certainly I have not done those things on my own, and you and Nimi are a part of that. So I'm just super excited about this podcast. I think it's a great idea and important conversation, and I've no doubt that more people than just Nimi and your mum are watching or will watch once we get
It is true. I get to see the data. There's a few more.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you, and I got the acknowledgement. Thank you very much. But it was really interesting how we got to the topic, which I will tell you, everyone, what it is in a moment, the topic. But where it started was I've been watching Jo, and I've been watching this, me personally, I'll go back a step. We're talking about weight and the body, like while Nimi was pregnant, she was 6 months pregnant, and I'd been on this diet protocol for a few months, and I'd lost like 13 kilograms. I was like, I was like one of those small body percentage numbers where you have a six pack coming through, and it was like I was just like touching the sun. I always wanted a six pack as long as I can remember. Always been a little bit overweight, and so I was like, it's happening. And then that last trimester, and then like the first 6 months of my daughter's life was just so taxing. I put on 18 kilograms, so I came back bigger and better. Then, and so it's also felt like it's been so far away, like so far to reach. So I was really like, let's get some tips. Let's get on here. You're someone who's got, you're working out, you got your body sorted, you got your health sorted. And then, it was interesting to hear your take that, you don't see yourself as a finished product. I look at you and I go, wow, she's a finished product. How good is Dr. Jo Winchester? And you called yourself a work in progress. And that really led to more the relationship that we have with ourselves, because I can tell you that I was in a pretty dark place after putting on 18 kilos. you know. And for me, it's something, my relationship with myself has improved over time, for sure. I'm in a much better place now, you know, like, I can tell you a little story where, you know, I put on that weight, and I had these underwear called Step One. The brand is called Step One. I don't know if you've seen them or been targeted them. They are awesome underwear. And this is not
Okay.
sponsored by Step One.
Okay.
But I put on all this weight, and I'm like, I don't want to stretch my underwear, you know, and I just had like, I don't know, 12 sets of the pairs of them. That's all I used. So I went and bought different underwear to use. Well, I was temporarily, you know, I got the dad bod, temporary, few months. And, you know, my daughter's 15 months old now. And I'm just like, I just use those underwears now, you know. So, you know, you hear that and you go, okay, here's a guy who's probably a little bit resigned, you know, about his weight. Like, it's just the way life is. But, you know, what we really both came to was for a topic was really more about the relationship that one has with themselves. And, like, you know, in talking to you, that's what you seem to say is at the source of, or the, you know, like what caused these great results in your life was really your relationship with yourself, you know. And I think being a new dad, or, you know, being in a family, there's so many traumatic events that can happen, such a high stress environment, that it's really easy to lose that relationship with yourself. So, you know, I did invite you on, so I should probably let you speak at some point. So is there anything you wanted to say about
such
anything?
a great insight, Anand. Like, it really is. And it was so interesting because you said, oh, could you come on the podcast? Because I want the topic to be, you know, someone with their dream body. And I was like, said yes, because I love talking about, you know, my health and wellness journey. And but I thought, well, I don't feel like I've got my dream body. I feel, but when I thought about it, I was like, oh, but I do feel like I have a dream relationship with my body. So there are certainly like more goals I want to achieve in terms of, you know, not necessarily just my weight, but my health and my weight. But I'm doing that in a really, with a real like positive mindset. Well, even that phrase is a bit, it's not just positive, it's just like a good relationship. And I feel like this is the first interruption by my child. So just
this might be the episode I finally have to learn how to edit. That's fine. Using the voice,
it's just like, and every other time at this hour, the kids are just like on their iPads, like no problem. Now, like my daughter's like naked for some reason. My son's like got masking tape on. I was like, what are you doing? Like, they've never done this before.
That's brilliant. That's great.
Oh my gosh.
Well, this is a tale of two halves. Hopefully two halves. Could be thirds, quarters. We don't know what we're going to do today. So for those watching this or listening, we just had a beautiful interruption, which is just what happens when you have kids around, isn't it, Jo? I think a really good place to go back to, which feels like a lifetime ago we were talking about this, is about the diet. You said a lot of good things happened. The ball started rolling from there with your relationship with yourself improving. So why don't you take us there, and do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, because I think certainly that was always a struggle for me. Like as a kid and as a teenager, I was a healthy weight, but once I hit my 20s, I stacked on the kilos, and thus began a 20-year cycle of me putting on 20 kilos, losing 20 kilos, putting it on and losing it again. And eventually I just had enough. So I'd had 3 kids. You know, my daughter was, you know, 2 or 3, 3, I guess. And I was like, hey, it's enough now, you know. And you battle, I think, as a woman mainly, but I'm not shying away from the fact that men would have their own, you know, issues with the relationships with their body. But I certainly, like, I identified as myself as like a feminist, and so definitely didn't want to see myself as somebody who was wanting to look pretty or wanting it to be about the bikini, or because there's lots of stuff in the media around, like it comes at you both sides, like one, this body beautiful and you shouldn't care how you look and all bodies are beautiful and all of this, and the other side going, well, your health, you know, about your health and diabetes and heart disease and all of this stuff. So I was kind of like coming up against these two narratives that were at me all the time. But really at the end of it, like you said earlier, you know, you got resigned. And that was certainly the moment. I was in a conversation with somebody, and I was like, I'm just struggling. I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know whether to just accept my body now at like 80 kilos and just say that's it, or do something about it. And in the conversation, we both came to this point where I was like, oh, I'm resigned. And like anyone who has ever had any experience with me, like I have never been a person that would like to be known as resigned, but I was resigned in so many areas of my life, like my relationship with my career, my relationship with my ex-husband, like with my kid, like so many things I was resigned in. And actually really saying those words and acknowledging that I was resigned was like this turning point. It like turned the fire on for me. And I was like, okay, I'm determined now to not only lose the weight, but this is it. This is the reckoning. And it was really a true reckoning where I like stood in the universe and said, okay, that's it, send me your best. Like, wow. Really, it really was that moment. And I guess I found Simpler Health, which is the program, you yourself did. And through, Trevor Rogers, who was a friend, and he'd done a YouTube video about starting his diet. And so contacted Dean to sign up, and it was in that first conversation with Dean, and I said to him, you have to promise me this is the last diet I'm doing. I'm not losing this weight again. And he said, I promise. And then I said, okay. And then I said, I'm going to do everything this man says. And I did. And I think, and I kind of wanted to talk about this because this is where the relationship started, was because I knew that it wasn't just the weight. It wasn't just knowing what to eat, although that's certainly an important part of that program. And I mean, I really got very fascinated with diet and food and learning things that I just had never learnt about properly, about protein and carbohydrates and vegetables, and like why we actually have to eat all these things. And now I was undiagnosed back then, but a year ago got diagnosed with ADHD. So now I would acknowledge that I hyper focus, on that food. And so certainly was just fascinated by it all. But the other thing I knew was that I had a emotional eating problem. I knew that. And I'd eat when I was happy, I'd eat when I was sad. Like, feelings and food, like, we're like best friends in terms of how I related to myself. So I knew that I had to like disrupt that from the beginning. And so anytime anything came up for me about my weight or eating or my feelings, I would, contact Dean and like arrange a coaching call or send him a text, or because I needed to get I knew I needed to get that sorted, or else this weight was going to come back on. And that was certainly true, particularly towards the end of losing the weight, was when it all kind of came up for me, because now suddenly my whole kind of self-identity changed. I went from being the fat friend, the fat family member, to being thin, and I had to know myself as somebody who was this weight, and now had to be really responsible for it too. And that was it was a really hard transition. And I think like we don't acknowledge that enough in weight loss. Like I know that certainly in the Simpler Health protocol, they're like, losing the weight's the easy part. It's when you've lost the weight and you have to maintain it, as you found. It's really hard, particularly when big things are happening in your life. It's really hard. And it's like, and then this is why I say it's a work in progress. And I'll always say that, even if I do end up with all the abs that I want and everything, it's because it doesn't stop. Like it's not like you get to the weight and then you're like, oh, okay, now it's donuts and ice cream again. It's like, no. You've got to eat like this for the rest of your life. Like you have to commit to this way of living forever. It doesn't all of a sudden mean that you can splurge. Not at all. Like you have to now be responsible for this and take that on board. And it's really hard. And like life, never judge anyone who is overweight, particularly after my experience, because it's hard. The world is not set up for you to succeed. It's actually set up for you to fail. And while I had a lot of supportive people come to me when I lost the weight and was very excited, and it was like, it was in lockdown. So when so I kind
Everyone's
of
going
lost the
the other
weight while
way.
everyone was in lockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone went up and I came out like the phoenix, you know, like woohoo, look at me. And so I got all the like wonderful ego boosting, you know, praise. It was great. People didn't recognize me. It was awesome. But I mostly got, oh, you've lost enough weight now. That's enough. You shouldn't go forward. Or be careful you don't get scrawny. You don't want to be one of those scrawny women. Or you can eat the cake now, like, or you can have that. And why are you still not eating, you know, sugar? And why aren't you drinking as much as you used to? And you're not as fun anymore. Like, so you have to be like, all of that comes up for you as well when you've lost the weight, and people have to, like, no longer are you the bigger one as well, like you're the, so it's really difficult. It's not easy, and you really have to take yourself on.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I guess what I'm getting from all that you're saying is, you know, it's like your weight or who you are for yourself. It's really like your identity, and that could be in any area, couldn't it? Like we're talking about weight now, but you know, who you are in your career, if you are like the go-getter, or if you're the person who isn't a go-getter, or, you know, so you do have to put something at stake if you want to make a big change with your relationship with yourself, which is, you know, like, I guess who you are for yourself, you know, your identity rather is what I was trying to say. You know, you do have to put your identity on the line and step away from that, which would be like the safety, you know, like this is who I am. I'm comfortable. This is my corner. This is my safe island. You sort of, if you want to make that big change, and look, so many people say they want to, you know, I know everyone who wants to lose weight, you know, and or wants to do this, or wants to have a big business, or wants to be rich, but what I'm seeing now is it takes stepping away from the safety of your own identity to step into something new. Right. That was awesome.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think like the my working memory just went, I don't know. I can't remember what I was going to say.
That's fine. I had a follow-up question anyway. So I had a follow-up question anyway, so that's perfect.
Yeah, go.
So now my working memory. No, I'm just joking. So, you know, you talked about getting really, I would say, authentic with yourself, that you were resigned, you know. What do you see as the importance of being authentic with yourself and maybe with others, in this journey of having a better relationship with yourself?
Yeah, I think I remembered what I was going to say in that, because what I was going to say is that it's interesting, like putting yourself on the line, because the other thing I did, and I didn't do this consciously, but that I was so excited. Like you really have to get, like, you know, it was 22 kilos in 22 weeks. And it was, as I said, I was a fat person. So everyone's got that person in their life where you like, they've always known them that way. So I'd come out and I'd lost the weight, and then I was so excited about life, and I knew myself as someone different. I got like 2 promotions, and it was like my career started to go off and all of these things. But I was just sharing so much about what I'd gotten with everyone, and I was like, can't believe it, I lost all this weight. It put me on the hook. And so it's meant that, like, I've kept this weight off for 3 years now. Maybe like I'm about 3 or 4 kilos a bit heavier now than I was 3 years ago, and I'm trying to weight build. So I'm fiddling around. I'm playing around with my carbs and my protein, and I'm just like trying to like get it all right. But like I put myself on the hook and like talked about it so much that it's like, oh, I've got to keep I've got to keep the weight off.
If you fail, it's going to be very, very publicly.
Yeah, that's right. And it's like, and it's so many, like I enrolled so many people, like I was like, oh my gosh, you have to do this. And like so many people signed up to the program. I wish I'd gotten.
Sure. I think I did because of you as well.
I think you did. I think so. Well, Nimi did it, and so excited. So it was like, gosh, I can't, now everyone's done it. Or even if they didn't do the program I did, they did their own, or they found another one that worked for them, because, you know, different things work for different people. And so it really had to be like, I'd kind of set myself up as this role model in it, and posted so much about it on social media. It was like, and I think that was a good thing. And I didn't, as I said, I didn't do that consciously. And it's a bit like that in my career, because I'm so excited about the work I do now. I share it, and I you know, do student retention projects is what I do at ACU, and I'm just so excited about it, and really love what I do, because it's really bringing in a lot of the community cultural development work, which is what I a lot of done in the past, and that's what my PhD is in, and my teaching skills and my community skills. It's kind of all come together in this, work I'm doing now at ACU in student retention. And I'm just so excited about it. I have to share, and I have to go, oh, it's been a real success. And I'm like so excited. So I'm keeping myself, every time I share about it, it's like I'm keeping myself on the hook and doing what I need to do to keep at that level. And it's not always easy. Like, certainly last year, was in very deep depression, and like coming out of it, like now, particularly the last couple of months, really coming out of it. But I think even within that, was able to still know myself as somebody that knew I would get out of it. I just had this, even in the really dark times, and I didn't know how I'd get out of it, but I was like, well, I know I can, and I just have to keep going, and I just have to keep going, getting up in the morning. And this is where I think the gym saved me a bit, because I have a really lovely F45 family in Panania, and they're just so beautiful. And if I didn't go, they'd be more like, are you okay? It's not like, you're not at the gym, why not? You should. It's like, oh, is everything okay? Are you all right? And so it was a really easy place to kind of come. And so that, having those safe spaces and really amazing friends, and to kind of get you out of that. I don't know why I started to talk about that.
Well, hi to the F45 family.
Yeah, yes.
You're our third listener, someone from F45. Yeah, but it's really awesome. And just one thing I wanted to go back on and address, you've used the term who I am for myself, and I use that too. And it's a bit of a weird thing to say. I think it's the same. What it means, I guess, is like when, we've talked about your identity and how scary it is to shift away from your identity, or, what you can and can't do would be part of your identity as well. I think when who you are for yourself shifts, it's like you now acknowledge that this is who you are, like you now acknowledge that who you are is someone, is like a skinny person. Yeah. For lack of a better word. So who you are for yourself is shifted. You're now at home. That's like your island. That's where you're comfortable. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And then, what do you think about authenticity in this whole journey? What's been the role of authenticity? I mean, to me, it sounds like that's where it all started. When you really got that you were resigned.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I guess, leading up to the diet, there'd been, a couple of years of me doing personal development and counseling, and being seeing a psychologist, and, knowing, kind of admitting to myself I wasn't happy. But it was actually, through those years, I knew I wasn't happy, and I was trying to, do what I could to be happy, or to be content. But I think the thing is that I wasn't really saying those hard things to myself. Like, I wasn't, they were kind of like what I kind of recognized it as is they were like floating around in there, and I knew they were there, but it's like I couldn't quite catch them to make it a fully formed thought, let alone be able to speak them. Yeah. And I feel like that's what I can do now, is to catch the thought and to really think about it, and to go, oh, is this something I need to share? I mean, because we think a lot of crap a lot of time, and you go, but it's like, okay, is this something that I actually really need to share and get a handle on, or like find some way to make a difference and transform this kind of feeling I have about myself. So I feel like that's when I really, and I think admitting the diet was probably the first time that I really authentically said, like that thought was, I'm resigned, and spoke the words to somebody, and then took action. And that's not an easy thing to do, like to be really authentic to yourself and to those people around you, to say like, this relationship isn't working, or this career isn't working, or this, who I see myself as a mother isn't working. they're not easy things to say, and they're even harder to speak out to somebody and say, I need help.
Let alone to a podcast. Luckily, we've only got 3 listeners now.
Yeah. So I would like say that was a really big shift for me. Was really, I mean, I had friends, but I think I never really shared with my friends how tough I found things. And that's what I started to do. So it was like this joint, like, these things are really working in my life and these things really aren't. So I feel like I was being authentic, and I try and do this still, is be authentic with both things and say, yeah, these are the things I'm really proud of, and I've got a handle on this, and this is working, but this is the stuff, you know, and a couple, you know, what I was married and no longer, but it was really like having those really difficult conversations with my ex and with those people around me to say, like, this relationship isn't working and I need help and I want it to work, and like, you know, really feel like both of us did everything to make that relationship work, but it just really taught me that it's like both those levels, like both that authenticity is really important if you want to make those transformations, if you want to shift something in your life.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think I'll share now quickly about, you know, a time where I definitely had the same experience, you know, like for me, how I say it with these thoughts in my head is like, I don't want to see them. You know, they're there. I keep them under the rug and I pretend they're not even there, you know? And, you know, I play golf with a couple of friends, probably about once a quarter. And when we go there, I normally win, you know, which is probably why I pick them, right? And this one particular time, and we're down in Sydney, I live on the Central Coast, so there's always a couple hour drive back. And this one time I didn't win. One of the other guys beat me. And I was so angry, you know, and I've done personal development as well. It's just like, I felt like how I used to be in high school, you know, and I just felt sad. And, you know, I called my wife, and luckily she's really good with this kind of stuff, right? And we were talking it through. And, you know, like you said, the thought that I grabbed that, you know, I just kept under the rug is like, I just think, like, authentically, that I shouldn't have to do the work. Like, I should just be able to go play golf once every 3 months, tear up the course, be as good as Tiger Woods, you know. And then I started to notice, man, I'm like that everywhere. You know, I want the 6-pack ab. I don't want to do the work, you know. It was in that moment of authenticity where, you know, like, I had a transformation, and I said, no, actually, that's not how that's not going to be my MO. You know, I'm not going to go there and say, I'm actually going to put in the work, you know. And I did maybe another episode is a lot of the positive health changes I've made, but in golf specifically, you know, I went and I got a coach. I go and practice 4 or 5 times a week now. I'm at the range most afternoons after I finish teaching, you know, and I'm getting really good. You know what I mean? But that'll happen off the back of that moment of authenticity, you know? And I think that willingness to look at, oh, maybe I am a jerk. Like, maybe I'm not this nice, you know, good. I was like, maybe I'm just sometimes a bit of an egotistical person. You know, maybe I'm a bit arrogant sometimes. You know, so I just think that's awesome what you shared, and I could just completely resonate. You know, where there's these moments of authenticity that just make such a difference and really alter the path. And then I think at some point, which I think was what happened with you as well, who you are for yourself, or you have that identity shift and you become someone, like I became someone, oh, I can actually work hard at things. I can actually do stuff.
Oh yeah, that's a
you
huge
know,
one for me.
I took on my flexibility. I've always been like stiff. And then I just realized I never bloody stretch. I never do anything. I just complain about being stiff, you know? So I started doing that. And now when I go to the gym, they're all like, oh, wow, you can squat all the way down. And I feel like that skinny person. I've actually said that person who was fat, like in terms of being flexible, you know? So it's been really great, you know? Everything we've talked about, it certainly resonates with me. And I think, you know, I do want to let you get back to your kids. But I do
like, I think like an important, can I just like say one thing, like for both of
I'm not
us
going to
that
kick you off. Don't worry.
Sorry, I just like, you know,
welcome to
like,
Dr. Jo Winchester's podcast.
I did that. Is like acknowledge that we's like, we don't know everything, so I'm going to go to the expert. You know, like, I don't know everything about
such
golf.
a good point.
So I'm going to go to the expert. And that was like the thing with the diet for me, it's like I don't know everything, so I'm going to go to the expert. And I think that's the part of the beauty, I think, of my research training has been that the acknowledgement that there are people with expertise out there, and you should go take full advantage of their years of training in this, and to get a handle on it. And it's like, you shouldn't feel like you should know everything. And I think, like, talking about parents, there is this, thing that you should know everything somehow. You've learned all these things by osmosis, and it doesn't work like that. And it's like, well, I'm going to go and ask an expert about breastfeeding or sleep or parenting, neurodiverse kids. Or it's like, we should stop like shaming ourselves. And I was in a conversation with a girlfriend on the weekend whose son's going through a bit of difficulty, and she's like, oh, I wish I didn't do that. I wish I didn't do that. I was like, but you didn't know. You didn't know, and you did the best you could, and now you're going to the expert to find out what to do about it.
Great.
So it's like, you can't, and the world is set up in a lot of these places for us to be confused and not know. And it's like, well, go to the biggest expert at the time and ask.
And they're so readily available nowadays. But I've found, and it happens with my teaching as well, one of the biggest what's the word? I think it's just like almost a human being kind of behavioral thing is people would rather just pretend they know what they're doing and fly under the radar than actually put their hand up and go, Mr. V, that's what they call him. Mr. V, I don't understand this. Can I get some help? Which is so stupid because at school, we're literally teaching kids stuff they don't know all the time. All the time. And if you don't put your hand up and you think, oh, I should know this, then you end up thinking you're dumb, And I find it's like, I've got to like push and cajole and bribe and incentivize and blah, 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 every strategy just to get kids to go, you know what, Mr. V, can I have some help with this? I don't quite understand how to do this division or whatever it is. And I think it's, I think if you don't crack that early on, then you just grow up into an adult who does that as well, which I think a lot of people are like that,
Yeah. I take I was really fortunate through my work at ACU to like come into contact with Dr. Carl, and I'll just say we're besties, even though maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but I certainly have kept in contact with him. But one of the things like he says, like on his shows, I don't know, like if someone asks him a question, he's like, I don't know, I'm going to go find out. And I think that's a really, like, he's well-renowned kind of like expert in the like everyday kind of science questions, and he still feels comfortable to say I don't know. And I think that's really important for going back to leadership, is that sometimes we as leaders don't know, and we should feel okay to say, oh, I don't know, I'm going to go and think about that, I'm going to do some research on that, I'm going to go ask other people about that and find out, and be okay with that. I think that shows a better leader than somebody who's pretending to know something.
Yeah, great. I agree. And look, I'm probably adding myself to any of my teacher colleagues who listen to this, but I Google stuff all the time. Kids ask me questions all the time. I go, I have no idea what that is. Let's find out.
Yeah, what's Google say?
And exactly. And I think as an adult, if you're willing to, we're on a tangent now, but if you're willing to do that, then the people who you do that with, like in my case, the kids I teach, they go, oh, great, I don't have to be so hung up about knowing everything in the world. There's too much to know. And so I think it's a great point, going and seeing expert. And that's another parallel, I would say, in how we've done things, Yeah, awesome. So I guess, there's just so much gold in what's been said today. And what advice do you have, for people who may be struggling to embrace, being authentic with themselves, or embrace what really sounds to me like is now like shifting their identity, having a better relationship with themselves. So what advice do you have for them?
I think it's like, be okay with the work in progress, and you're much better. I've got a favorite saying at the moment. I don't know who said it first, but it's like 1% every day, 1% better every day. Because when I was in the dark time, it was like, gosh, I don't know what to do. The leap felt so big, that I had to get back to, that I wanted to get back to. And it was just like about, okay, 1% better every day. And that's that's what I've tried to do. And I'm still discovering like things about myself and still learning and, appreciating more things about myself. And that's been like a wonderful discovery as well. And I think that's probably, I've started to really let go, and I have a really great psychologist. So I guess I would say, get help, and you're not the only one, and everybody, and you could get to a really great place and then have depression, and that's, okay as well, and that's common. And
Mm.
so I certainly have felt like journeys that I felt like were very individual to me have since discovered they're quite universal. And I have only really gotten out of that through really honoring the relationships with my friends, I would say. Have That was for me a big thing, is really reaching out to people and sharing and allowing people to contribute to me has been a big shift for me. And so you might have a different, challenge, but it's certainly worth it. And you can do it. Like, really, like, 3-4 years ago, 4 years ago, I guess, I was, in my office, sad, overweight, like not achieving what I wanted to at work. And it was, I guess, just slow, because it's been a number of years of me, getting myself out of that. It certainly
Mm.
wasn't straight away, but certainly who I am now is someone that I feel like I have a real balance of, relationships and friends and, work and career and fun. And I make sure I play and have fun as well. So it's hard. And I guess this is a new parenting podcast, I guess. So just like parenting, it just does get easier. I know we all say it, but it does, because you start to practice. Like, this little thing comes, and it's like every day you're learning the skill. So the skills come, and it does get easier, and you try new things, and you're going to fail. Be okay with failure. I don't know, I could go on and on, but
That's awesome.
1% better every day.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Just aim for that.
Beautiful. And it's been really great to have you and speak to you. And it's great to see someone who's so successful and clearly wasn't born that way, but has really been on a journey for the last 3 years, getting a better relationship with herself. And, my big takeaways today are, one, get help, and I think that used to be said, like, you would say that I remember when we were in the playground, back in the late 80s, you're like, get help. It's like offensive, what you're trying to say. But I think the world has changed a lot today, and get help really can mean like you're not in it alone, No one needs to do any of this. You don't need to struggle. You can get help. That's the first thing. And the second thing was really, really getting today that if I want to make a big shift, like if I want to have my dream body, it's going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to have to literally get off my little secure island of, having the extra weight. And I'm going to have to be out there in the shark infested water until at some point I pop, and that's my identity. And that's just what it's going to take, So again, thank you so much for being here. It's been really enlightening to have you. Please share this, because I'm sure you can get more listeners than I can. I'm just kidding.
Oh, you know me, I overshare. So yeah,
right. I've got the right guest then.
Great. Yeah.
Feel free to get me on. Feel free to get Dr. Carl.
Yeah, go Dr. Carl. Oh, he would talk. He talks to anyone. But no, I really think what you're really doing is great. And for dads, or for people who aren't the primary partners, I think it's an important conversation. And good on you. So I'm excited about who else you're going to have on.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I will figure out how to edit things, and I will get here.
Or not, just leave in the chaos. Like, so funny. I have to say, I said to Anne, like, for the guests, I said to Anne, oh, my kids are going to come in, but if that's okay. But in my head, I was like picturing this, like, like my sweet 7-year-old girl coming, oh, mummy, can I have a meal? Oh, yes. Okay. I was picturing like these little sweet interruptions, but it was like nudity and masking tape on doors and yelling. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh, bro, it's like what I've got in my future. I think it's what's coming.
Yeah, that's right.
Again, thank you so much for being here, Jo. And for everyone, if you have any questions for Jo, anything that you want more information about, feel free to let me know, send me a message, and I'll pass it on. I'm sure she's happy to let you know. If you want any more information about the diet she was on, or the crew that she worked with and I worked with as well, then please reach out. We can get you that as well. Thanks for listening, and good night, everyone, or good day, or whenever you're watching it. Have a nice life. Bye.